818 Creation. Western politicians versus Asian politicians. Western politicians have contributed to several positive aspects in governance, society, and human rights. Here are some examples. 1. Promotion of democracy. Western politicians have played a crucial role in advancing democratic principles globally. Through their advocacy, support for free and fair elections, and respect for civil liberties, they have helped foster democratic transitions in many countries. 2. Protection of human rights. Western politicians often prioritize the protection of human rights, such as freedom of speech, assembly, and religion. They have worked to establish legal frameworks and institutions that safeguard individual liberties, standing up against discrimination and injustice. 3. Emphasis on rule of law. Western politicians generally uphold the importance of the rule of law, ensuring that laws apply equally to all citizens. This principle helps create a just and accountable society, where no one is above the law. 4. Support for international cooperation. Western politicians have played a significant role in fostering international cooperation, whether through alliances, multilateral organizations, or global initiatives. They promote diplomacy, peaceful conflict resolution, and collaboration on issues like climate change, poverty alleviation, and public health. Western politicians often possess a range of qualities that can contribute to effective leadership and governance. Here are some commonly observed qualities. 1. Strong communication skills. Western politicians tend to excel in public speaking, articulating their ideas, and engaging with diverse audiences. Effective communication helps them convey their vision, build support, and engage in public discourse. Examples include Barack Obama, known for his inspiring speeches, and Angela Merkel, renowned for her measured and thoughtful communication style. 2. Openness to debate and critical thinking. Western politicians often value open and robust debates, encouraging the exchange of ideas and perspectives. They prioritize critical thinking, evidence-based decision-making, and engaging with differing viewpoints. For instance, Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, has been praised for her inclusive and transparent approach to governance. 3. Commitment to public service. Many Western politicians demonstrate a strong sense of public duty and commitment to serving their constituents. They work towards the betterment of society and prioritize the interests of the people they represent. Examples include Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, who emphasizes inclusive policies and social justice. 4. Adherence to democratic principles. Western politicians often uphold democratic values, including respect for individual rights, freedom of expression, and the rule of law. They seek to protect democratic institutions and promote accountable and transparent governance. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a former U.S. Supreme Court Justice, embodied a commitment to upholding democratic principles through her work on civil rights and gender equality. 5. Emphasis on collaboration and consensus building. Western politicians recognize the importance of collaboration and consensus building, working across party lines to achieve common goals. They seek to bridge divides and find common ground. Angela Merkel, during her tenure as the German Chancellor, was known for her ability to build coalitions and navigate complex political landscapes. It is important to approach this topic with sensitivity and avoid making sweeping generalizations about politicians from specific countries. However, I can highlight some negative attitudes that have been observed in the political landscape of India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, keeping in mind that these attitudes do not apply to all politicians in these countries. 1. Corruption. Corruption has been a persistent issue in the political systems of these countries. Some politicians have been involved in bribery, embezzlement, and misuse of public funds for personal gain. This undermines public trust and hampers effective governance. For example, in India, there have been numerous instances of politicians being involved in corruption scandals, such as the 2010 Commonwealth Games corruption scandal or the 2012 coal allocation scam. These cases involved embezzlement of public funds and bribery. 2. Political polarization. In some cases, politicians in these countries have contributed to political polarization by engaging in divisive rhetoric exploiting ethnic, religious, or regional differences for political gain. This can hinder consensus building and societal harmony. For example, in Sri Lanka, politicians from different ethnic groups have often engaged in divisive politics, exacerbating tensions between the Sinhalese and Tamil communities. 3. Clientelism and patronage. Some politicians have practiced clientelism, where they establish personal relationships with constituents based on the exchange of favors or resources, rather than focusing on broader public interest. This perpetuates a system of patronage and undermines meritocracy. In countries like Bangladesh, allegations of nepotism and cronyism have been raised against politicians and their family members. 4. Lack of transparency and accountability. Some politicians have been criticized for a lack of transparency in their decision-making processes and a lack of accountability for their actions. This can result in a lack of trust in the political system and hinder the effective functioning of democratic institutions. Instances of lack of transparency and accountability have been reported in countries like Pakistan and Sri Lanka. 5. Dynastic politics. In some cases, politicians from political dynasties have dominated the political landscape, passing down power and positions within their families. This can limit political competition and hinder the emergence of fresh talent and ideas. 6. Intolerance and discrimination. In some instances, politicians have exhibited attitudes of intolerance and discrimination towards marginalized communities, religious or ethnic minorities, or women. This can perpetuate inequality and hinder social progress. 7. Misuse of power and authoritarian tendencies. In certain situations, politicians have been accused of misusing their positions of power for personal or political gain. Some have exhibited authoritarian tendencies, suppressing dissent, limiting freedom of expression, and undermining democratic norms. For instance, in Vietnam, the government has been criticized for restricting political opposition, controlling the media, and suppressing freedom of expression. Asian politicians can learn several valuable lessons from their counterparts in Western democracies. 1. Democratic values and institutions. Western democracies have a long history of upholding democratic principles, such as rule of law, separation of powers, and protection of individual rights. Asian politicians can learn from Western countries' commitment to democratic institutions and work towards strengthening them in their own countries. 2. Transparency and accountability. Western democracies place a strong emphasis on transparency and accountability in governance. Asian politicians can adopt practices like disclosing financial assets, implementing freedom of information laws, and establishing independent oversight bodies to ensure greater transparency and accountability. 3. Public engagement and participation. Western politicians often prioritize citizen engagement and participation in decision-making processes. Asian politicians can learn from Western countries' examples of holding town hall meetings, conducting public consultations, and using technology to involve citizens in policymaking. 4. Political inclusivity and diversity. Western democracies have made progress in promoting political inclusivity and diversity. Asian politicians can learn from initiatives that encourage the participation of women, minority groups, and marginalized communities in politics, such as implementing gender quotas or promoting affirmative action. 5. Ethical standards and anti-corruption measures. Western democracies have implemented robust anti-corruption measures and ethical standards. Asian politicians can learn from these examples and work towards strengthening their own anti-corruption frameworks, enforcing stricter campaign finance regulations, and promoting a culture of integrity in public service. 6. Evidence-based policymaking. Western countries often prioritize evidence-based policymaking, relying on research, data, and expert advice to inform decision-making. Asian politicians can learn from this approach and emphasize the importance of evidence-based policy formulation, evaluation, and implementation. 7. Peaceful transitions of power. Western democracies have a tradition of peaceful transitions of power, even during closely contested elections. Asian politicians can learn from this practice and work towards fostering a culture of peaceful transitions and accepting electoral outcomes gracefully. 8. International cooperation and diplomacy. Western politicians often prioritize international cooperation and engage in multilateral forums to address global challenges. Asian politicians can learn from Western countries' approaches to diplomacy and collaboration on issues like climate change, human rights, and security. Thanks for watching.